Tamiya, smashing it out the park, and I look forward to getting this one together. Hi guys, Brett here from Hearns Hobbies, and today I'd like to do an unboxing of the Tamiya Frog. Now this car's been around since 1983 and it was first re-released in 2005. So let's jump in and have a look. This one here is actually a Hearns exclusive Frog, given the fact that indeed they didn't come with speed controllers anymore. So we've gone ahead and included a 9 Steps Industries speed controller so you can get it closer to finished off. Okay, so let's have a look. So what we're greeted with here in the box obviously is the beautiful Tamiya parts box. We've got the clear body that we'll have a look at later. And first, let's have a look into the parts trees. I'll just move this box off to the side and let's break into this one and have a good look. Being such an iconic model, I think it's good that we have an in-depth look and really see what the Frog was all about in 1983. Now I'm expecting to see some revisions in this kit. I've heard that they've put a newer model dogbone, but let's have a look at that when we get it. So here we've got our wheel hexes, we've got our motor mount and pinion cover over here. We've got our rear trailing arms. Now these are iconic for the Frog, and I suppose they give it that squat Frog stance where the name come about. We've got our Tamiya wheel adapters here that go over the drive pins on the axles. And here, this big plate casing here, that is the stacked gearbox design. So they used a very narrow gearbox, but it was stacked in design. So we have our pinion gear and idler gear / spur gear and the differential down the bottom. We'll have a look to that more as we get into it. Okay, next parts tree we're greeted with is the wheels. Again, these are synonymous with Tamiya, these wheels, and these are their classic split rim design. Now you can see here that there's actually 3 pieces per wheel. 3 pieces for the rear wheels and 2 pieces for the front wheels. So we've got the midsection, the front and the rear, and then, the front too actually. We've got our front wheel. We can see here it's narrower, and the front and the rear. Obviously much narrower than the rear wheel. And they had that old Baja Buggy looking big fat rear tyre and skinny front tyre, which is really iconic in the 70s and the 80s. So really looking forward. I suppose here we've got our tyres. Now these are awesome. These are like a dual pimple design on the rear. They're quite hard in structure like the old tyres, and they are Tamiya's all-weather super grippers. You can see here, beautifully embossed, very detailed. Again, you can see what I mean about the big wide rear tyres and the front ribbed tyre, which is commonly referred to, affectionately known as the smoothie. And that was used also on the Sand Scorcher and various other models through the years on Tamiya. So they are really cool, quite iconic. Next parts tree that we have a look at is in fact the driver. This is back when all RC cars came with the driver for the added scale look. And that is the classic Tamiya driver guy with really cool leather, driving outfit, helmet, and we've got here the iconic driving lights. So they will go on the body as well as a final fitting. And yeah, so driving lights and driver figure, all top notch. Next parts trees that we're looking at in the parts bag are these white ones. Now you notice that in fact these white parts are a different shade of white to these ones to the driver figure, and that is because it's more nylon. So there's more nylon in it to give it that more stretching. So it's less brittle, it's actually a tougher plastic, and they'll use that for various components such as the classic Tamiya servo saver here. And that's got the 4-piece servo saver with all the different drive rings, so it can suit all different servos. And then we've got other things like the suspension collar, and here we've got the battery pin. So that's going to hold the door on the battery locator, which is really cool. So that's good. And the body mounts here, really cool kit. You might be thinking that it's quite simple, but it was quite advanced for its time. So there's our speed controller, our 9-step speed controller. Now let's have a look at the iconic frog box. Now Tamiya put this in each of their kits and it's very personalised to each one. So let's jump in and have a look what's in there. Here we go. Let's have a look what we're greeted with. Okay, so it's really, I'll just tip that up and put that to the side. Wow. Now you can see, obviously, it's very inclusive. Here we have the Tamiya Mabuchi 540. Classic. Right in here we've got our gear set. So that includes our spur gear, if you will, our idler, and part of our diff assembly here. So you can see here that it's a bevel diff, and that's where the 3 gears will go in to give us that well, at the time I suppose it was a relatively smooth diff action, and they were common to failing and always very replaceable. And we've even got the option internal gear here, so it comes with a 50 tooth and the 49, so you can change your gearing options whether you go for a sports tuned motor or not. Actually there's 3, so there's a 52, a 50 and a 49 tooth here. You can see the difference here in the sizes, and yeah, and they're all marked with frog. It's really cool. So you've got gearing options available to you, whether you want to have more acceleration or more top speed. Get all these out of the way and we'll do them just a little bit one by one. Now here we have the classic Tamiya shock absorbers, but looking at them now, they have been revised. So they used to be a cartridge through design, and now they are a 3-piece, much more modern and conventional shock absorber, which is good. I'm sure that they perform better than the standard shocks nearly 40 years ago. So that will screw on there like that. We'll have our shock mounting coming out there and our shock cartridge to screw on the bottom here, which will give us, I'll just do it now so we can see, which will retain the O-rings and the bush. So that is super neat. Beautifully machined and quality anodized. Exactly what you'd expect from Tamiya. So we've got here our dampers, we've got our shock shafts, and of course our period correct springs. And they're actually mounted horizontally on the frog because they use the cantilever off the arms. Really cool. So looking forward to getting those together. We'll stick those to the side. Here we've got our big parts tree. Now again, it's a different, you can see it's much more shinier and different color, and it is in fact the iconic grey frog color. So this chassis did come about in various forms, and we've got parts tree A and parts tree A and parts tree B here. So we've got our, you can see these 2 chassis forms here, they will come together to make us the frog ladder chassis. Really cool. We've got our battery retaining plates. Beautiful, beautiful. And you can't tell, you couldn't tell that the tooling is in fact 40 years old. They probably have redone it over the years, because that is beautifully cast. Beautiful injection molding. Then we've got our big switch cover. Looks really cool. Okay. Now I mentioned earlier that I heard Tamiya have upgraded their dog bones, because they used to have this hexagonal system, like it was a 6-way flat-sided hexagonal drive system that came out of the differential into a bone and then down into the wheel. So they've put a more conventional 2-pin out drive. So this will be the axle where the wheel goes, and yeah, you can see here by modern standards it's very, very short dog bone. I didn't have a great deal of suspension travel compared with the modern cars, but that made it super cool. Oh, and we've got a machined gear here for the transmission, and that is fantastic. The quality that they've gone into the machining and the anodizing here, you can really tell that that's a quality part. So I bet that this frog is going to perform and outlast its earlier versions by far. And before I mentioned that we did in fact have 3 gear sets, I'm just going to go ahead and open this bag here, because this is quite quite interesting. What we've got here is 3 pinions. So we've got 3 pinions and 3 spurs. So you can in fact have 3 different gear ratios in one kit. And you can see here that they are in fact still what I'd refer to as a 32 pitch or a big pitch pinion. So I think it would be a mod 0.8 would be the Imperial, commonly referred to as 32 pitch. And yeah, so to match the 49, the 50 and the 52 spur gears in the transmission, we've got 3 pinions. I'll have to read the instructions to find out the tooth count, but that will marry up to each one of those spurs and give you the correct gear mesh and driving characteristics. What else we've got in this bag is the bearings. So there's 4 roller bearings in here, and then the rest of them are the nylon kind of bushing. So it really pays, if it's going to be anything other than a shelf queen, to actually build it with a full bearing kit. But most of these will not see very little to no use at all, so that would be fine in the kit. And here is the classic Tamiya bevel gear sets that we used to always replace, because the plastics just weren't up to it and we never used to drive them gently. Here we go. So here in fact is the cast gears, and they're alloy cast, and that was quite revolutionary at the time. You can see here we've got the side gears, and then in here we've indeed got the bevels. I've still got the diff gear out, so I can show you in fact how that will effectively be assembled. You can see here we've got our 3 gears going in like so. Then we'll have one of our side gears going on, and then this gear here with the pin going through the middle, and that does give us you can imagine the axles coming off there and giving us that diff action. So far different than the modern day diffs, but still really effective and gives you really good driving experience. Other metal parts that we've got in here are the steering hubs, and with these we've got the classic Tamiya cast hub, so which is far better than the plastic. So this should outlast and outlive many of the other revisions, and that is super cool. It's got the ball end in there, it's got the brass ball end, the cast aluminium steering arm, again with the steel axle actually in there. So that is a really cool detail part, and you just don't get parts like that in any other kit than Tamiya. So there we go. So that's that one out of the way. And here we have our pressed aluminium parts. Well, actually steel parts I should say. So here we have our iconic front skid plate, and that goes under the front of the chassis area to do exactly that, just to protect the chassis, give it some sort of resilience and form, and very iconic to the Frog, that one. And here we have our gearbox cases, nicely stamped out, marked left and right, and that will go trying to do it looking away, and that's how the transmission will look when it's in the car. So we'll have our motor off to the side here, and that big black casing in the first one gets sandwiched in between with our gear sets in there. So really cool design at the time, really integral structural part of the car. Here we have more metal parts, again for the transmission suspension mounts. We've got our front suspension arms. Again, very small by today's standards, but this is what we use to cantilever and act on the front suspension. So they use a mono spring design in the front end, which was quite ingenious at the time. We have our ever famous radio antennas, and there was one mounted either side of the car. So back in the 80s we used to have a big antenna wire that would be wrapped around, and that gave it that classic Baja look with the big aerials. Got a screw packet there, nice standard screws. Got our hinge pins here, longer screws, put those to the side, not too much exciting. Here we have some shock parts, some plastic shock parts. So in here I expect to find the shock pistons. Yeah, so in here we've got our spring retainers, we've got our shock pistons. Now again, they've given us 3 setup options. So there's 1-hole, 2-hole and 3-hole pistons. So it gives us quite a different driving experience and quite a bit of tunability in the car, which is really good for a kit. And you can see here how they've cast this one again out of a lot more alloy, a lot more nylon to give it a lot more stretching and not very brittle. So keeps all those plastic parts very durable, well fitting and precise. I've also got a few different spring preload collars here so we can adjust our rear ride height. Everybody with a Tamiya knows what this is. That's the bumper bar, and it's sure to get a workout. Again, it's got the really rubbery plastic in there, which is really cool. Pretty hard to break, not completely indestructible, and will double as a wall hook, a wall hanging implement. Here we have transmission pins, body mounts and some ball ends. So that's pretty cool. And then here we've got, what are we looking at here? Again, another black parts tree. So I've got our bumper bar mount and chassis mounts in here. So we'll put that to the side. And here we have one of the finishing ones. It's got double-sided tape, battery foam, commonly referred to as battery foam, so the battery doesn't rattle around. And we've got our iconic Tamiya Driveshaft boots. Now these come in one part that you in fact have to cut, and you put each side of the transmission case, the dog bones contained within the driveshaft boot, and held on with two zip ties, one at each end. So they're really worried about keeping them dirty and getting mud and stuff in there. In the old days with the hex drive, with the modern dog bone you probably wouldn't need it as much, but still build it with that for that really iconic look. And what else have we got? Oh, last but not least, within the box, that's all our parts trees. Last but not least, again, is this more than iconic frog body shell. Now they've done this, it comes in the clear polycarbonate, which is really cool. So you can in fact paint it how you want. So it doesn't have to be in the box art, but you can bet that probably 90% of them people will paint them the same as the box. The white and the pink was really iconic and super cool at the time. And here we have our wing, very small by today's standard, and that'll be cut out and go there. So really looking forward to seeing that one come together. Last things in our box is going to be the instructions and our sticker sheet. Now, since 1983, there's different licensing and stuff has changed, so they've had to go with different stickers. So some of the brands and stuff in fact have changed, but they've kept it in the same theme and looks pretty much the same from a distance. So this big Tamiya racing sticker here in fact used to be a NGK sticker, and these ones here with the forward stickers, they used to be Penrite, I believe, or Pennzoil. And yeah, so they've had different changes, but they've kept the same theme and motifs, so you can get it true to the 83 model. And here we have the instructions, and I'm sure they'd be typical Tamiya quality, super explaining. They've got the scale charts off to the side here, so each and every part you'll be able to lay over the book and make sure that you are in fact fitting the right one. So yeah, it goes into detail here about the different gearing options that you've got. So we've got from 6.7 to 1 up to 8.5 to 1. So it's quite a vast difference in the gearing options that you've got for really high speed stuff. So 6.7 will be really high speed, and 8.5 is going to be a lot more acceleration, but a lot slower top speed. Will also make your battery last probably a little bit longer. And yeah, so here we have the shocks. It's telling you how to build, assemble and bleed your shocks for that silky smooth operation. Yeah, Tamiya smashing it out of the park. Okay guys, so I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things you'll need to actually finish your kit off. And the first thing here in the building and finishing of your kit will be the 9 Steps Industries Vintage RC Car Toolkit. Now that's a 4-piece kit with the 2 Phillips heads, the pinion, the 1.5mm pinion screw, and also needle nose pliers. and that's invaluable in building, servicing and repairing your kit. The next item on there is the all-inclusive Tamiya Get It Going package, and what we have here is your radio, your battery charger and your steering servo. Again, that's going to be everything you need to get your kit going. The last piece of the puzzle is going to be the painting of your body. If you've bought a kit that's come with a clear body, you're going to need polycarbonate paint, and I strongly recommend looking towards the Tamiya PS range. The PS means it's polycarbonate safe and flexible, ensures a quality finish that will last for a long time. For any further information and videos on all these items, please check our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.